Welcome back. It's not actually Hanukkah yet, but I was doing a presentation. The Norwich and District Historical Society has these regular lunch and learns on Wednesdays in the Quaker Meeting House at the Norwich Museum, and they were talking about Christmas traditions and foods. So I did a little bit about the foods I usually cook for Hanukkah dinner, and the ugly Hanukkah sweater is comfy, and there are only so many opportunities to wear it in a year, so I'm still wearing it. Matt is wondering about giving Utnapishtim his medication. He is still happily munching on some cucumber slices, so I think maybe we'll just let him do that, but if he starts getting loud, then yes, please take him away and drug him. So far, in Animorphs number 4, The Message, the Animorphs have been receiving some form of distress signal. It seems to come to them the same way Andalites communicate through thought speech, and similar to the way they communicate with each other in thought speech when they're in morph. The distress signal, it seems therefore like it's coming from an Andalite, and he seems to be trapped somewhere beneath the sea. So where we left off, they had morphed dolphins so as to swim out a little ways to sea, wondering if they could get a sort of clearer signal on that distress call. And they did, but also Marco was injured. They were chasing some sharks away from a whale. And because Marco was injured, they had to go back to shore. So they're probably going to have to go out again. I will pick up at chapter 13. The next day, I went to see Marco at his home. He and his dad live in a garden apartment complex, one of the older ones, on the far side of the big neighborhood where Jake and Rachel both live. I'd only been over there a couple of times. I think Marco is kind of embarrassed because he doesn't have much money. He used to live in a house just down the street from Jake, but that was when his mother was still alive and before his father had a breakdown and quit his job. I knocked on the door. From inside, I heard Marco's voice. Dad, there's someone at the door. Put on your bathrobe, okay? There was a delay, and then the door opened. Marco looked annoyed. Cassie, what are you doing here? I wanted to talk to you. To me? About what? About yesterday, I said. He hesitated. Look, I'm spending the day with my dad, okay? We're thinking maybe we'll do something together. That's good, I said. Over Marco's shoulder, I could see his father. He was wearing a bathrobe and sitting on the couch. He was staring at the TV. That much was normal for any dad, I guess, on a weekend morning. But I had the feeling that Marco's dad was always sitting right there in front of the TV. Look, Marco, I just want to talk for a minute. Can I come in? No, he said hastily. He stepped outside onto the concrete breezeway. Down below us was a swimming pool. It was drained and closed. Leaves covered the bottom. Marco, I wanted to talk to you about yesterday. What about it? You could have been killed. It would have been my fault. This whole mission was my idea. Jake asked me if we should do it, and I said yes. Marco rolled his eyes. That's it? Look, it wasn't your fault. It's the whole thing we're doing, this whole Animorph thing. It's been dangerous right from the start. It's insanely dangerous. What else is new? I shrugged. What's new, I guess, is that the other times it was always somebody else's idea. Oh, I get it. You don't like responsibility. I winced. Was that it? Was I afraid of taking responsibility? I don't want to get my friends killed. And let me assure you, your friends don't want to get killed either, Marco said with a laugh. I am completely opposed to getting killed. He grew serious, even sad. But you know what? Sometimes bad things happen, and that's the way it is. I leaned against the rail, looking down at the dismal, empty pool. I see things die all the time, I said. Animals, I mean. Sometimes you can't save them. Sometimes we even have to put them down, and they're suffering. But my dad makes those decisions, not me. He's the vet. I'm just his assistant. Look, here I am, all alive, Marco said, tapping his chest. Get over it. I didn't have to go. It was my choice. Were you scared? For a while, he didn't answer. He just came over and leaned on the railing beside me. I'm scared all the time now, Cassie, he said at last. I'm scared to fight the Yerks, and I'm scared of what will happen if I don't. I look at Tobias, and what happened to him scares me to death. What if I get stuck in Morph someday? And most of all, I'm scared of him. I didn't have to ask Marco who he meant by him. Visser 3. That first time in the construction site, when he murdered the Andalite, Marco made a twisted smile. I see that in my head every day. And the Yerk pool? He shook his head. That's something I would like to forget too. Yes, I agreed. There has been a lot of fear. So was I afraid yesterday? Bet on it. I was scared plenty. It was like, man, it's not bad enough. We have to fight Hork-Bajir and Taxon and Visser 3. We also have to fight sharks. Sharks! He laughed, and hearing him brought the laughter out of me. We both just stood there and giggled like idiots for a few minutes. It was that laughter you get after something really tense has happened. Relief laughter. We're still alive laughter. By the way, I was going to wait to tell everyone at the same time, Marco said, but I think we have a problem. What problem? It was in the newspaper this morning. 2 stories. Sorry. It was in the newspaper this morning. 2 stories. One is about this guy who's going to be looking for some supposedly lost treasure ship off the coast. The other was this story about some big marine biologist guy who has a ship and is going to be doing some underwater exploration off our coast. Yes, so all of a sudden, our nearby stretch of the ocean seems to be very interesting to people. Treasure hunters and an underwater exploration at the same time? Controllers? He nodded. I think so. I think it's all going to be a cover story to explain why 2 ships will be out there with lots of divers in the water. I think it's them, all right. And I think they're looking for the same thing you're looking for. I felt weak. The image the whale had given me surfaced in my mind, and the faint cry in my dreams, the cry for help. I can't ask anyone to go out there again, I whispered. This time we might not be so lucky. Marco looked uncomfortable. Cassie, you know how I feel about all this. I think we have to take care of ourselves first, and our own families. He glanced back at his apartment door. On the other hand, I guess after what the Andalite did for us, I wouldn't feel like much of a human being if I didn't at least try to save whoever's out there. I don't know who's out there, I said. I don't know if it's even real, but you think it's an Andalite. I think it is, but Marco, I don't know. If someone gets hurt, killed, just because I have these dreams, I can't make that kind of decision. Yes, but can you decide to do nothing? Because that's a decision too. I had to smile. Marco, for a guy who's always joking around and being annoying, you are awfully smart. Yeah, I know, but don't tell anyone. It would destroy my image. I started to walk away. You know what was strange about yesterday? Marco said. What? The sharks. The sharks. They were so totally deadly. I mean, we worry about Hork-Bajir and Taxon and Visser 3. You kind of forget sometimes that right here on little old planet Earth, there are these creatures just as tough and dangerous. It would be funny, wouldn't it, if it wasn't some alien that ended up getting us, but some normal Earth creature? I didn't think it was funny at all. Marco grinned at my stone face. Okay, not funny haha, more like funny weird. Chapter 14. Okay, said Jake. Here's what we know, or at least what we think we know. We were all at Rachel's house again. It was a few hours after I had gone to see Marco. Tobias was perched on the windowsill. He didn't feel all that comfortable being inside for long. He liked the feel of the wind and the open air. First, we believe that somehow a surviving Andalite, or maybe more than one Andalite, is trapped out in the ocean. Hopefully Andalites can hold their breath for a really long time, Marco joked. Second, Cassie believes she can find this Andalite, thanks to the information from the whale. Everyone kept a straight face for about 10 seconds about that. Then, all at once, everyone cracked up. Information from a whale, Marco repeated, giggling. Have our lives really gotten that weird, or is this just me? Tobias asked. Weird? Weird? Marco crowed. The talking bird wants to know if getting information on the location of an alien from a whale that you... Sorry. Sometimes you have to read like an entire Marco line before you try to say it out loud. Or Weird? Weird? Marco crowed. The talking bird would like to know if getting information on the location of an alien from a whale that you've just saved from sharks by turning into dolphins, he's suggesting that might be weird? Jake smiled. Well, stay tuned. It just gets weirder. Cassie and I have been going over maps. She says the location we're looking for is pretty far out to sea, too far for us to swim and still have any time left of our 2-hour limit. Well, that's the ball game, isn't it? Marco asked. Jake nodded at Rachel. I was talking to Rachel earlier, and she has an idea. Rachel stood up. She'd been lounging on the bed. We hop a ride on a ship. First, we morph into something like a seagull. Marco groaned. I hate the plans that begin with the words, first we morph. We morph into seagulls. Sorry. I picked up the plan we'd been working out. Then, Then, we fly out into the shipping channel. We land on a tanker or a container ship or something that's going the right direction. We morph back to human, rest up, let the ship get us closer, then jump over the side, morph to dolphin, and go the rest of the way. Oh, well, when you put it that way, it sounds so easy, Marco sneered. How about, instead, what if we just walk over to Chapman's house and tell him to give Visser 3 a call to finish us off? It's so much easier, and the results will be the same. Jake sighed. It is dangerous and risky, and there are about 100 things that could go wrong. Plus, as Marco has told us, we have reason to think that controllers will be out there, searching for the same thing we're searching for. This idea just gets better and better, Marco said. Let's put it to a vote, Jake suggested. I'm in, Marco said instantly. A split second behind him, Rachel said her usual, I'm in. Everyone just stared open-mouthed at Marco. Just once I wanted to beat Rachel to it, he explained. Tobias? Jake asked. I don't think I should vote. I have to sit this one out. I don't think I should vote. I have to sit this one out. I can't stay up that long with nowhere to sit down. Sorry. You had the dreams, just like Cassie, Jake pointed out. Do you think we should do this or not? Tobias fixed his fierce glare on me. Yes, Cassie and I both had the dreams. I think they're real. Okay, looks like we go, Jake said briskly. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, we can't wait any longer. The longer we hold off, the greater the chance the Yerks will beat us to it. We left Rachel's house. Marco split off in one direction. Tobias flew off to some unknown destination. Jake and I walked together for a while, even though it was out of his way. I think Tobias is feeling kind of left out, I said. You should talk to him later. Remind us of how many times he has helped us out. That's a good idea, Jake agreed. We walked a little farther in silence. It's one of the nice things about the relationship Jake and I have. We can be quiet together and feel okay about it. This is really dangerous, isn't it? I asked him. He nodded. Suddenly, I stopped walking. I don't know why, but I had this need to tell him something. I took one of his hands and held it between both of mine. Jake? I said. Yes? It was there on the tip of my tongue, but then it seemed ridiculous to say it. So instead I said, Look, don't ever get hurt, okay? He smiled that smile. Me? I'm indestructible. The way he said it, I almost believed him. But then, as he went his way and I headed toward home, I glanced up at the sky. Against the blaze of sunset, I saw a flash of russet tail feathers. Tobias, our friend who had been trapped forever in a body not his own. None of us was indestructible. Chapter 15. Pardon me, I have to figure out what's going on here. I have like a whole page of thought speech that is not attributed to anybody. No idea. Wish me luck. Hey, have a sandwich. It's salami. Look over there. Is that a jube jube? Pizza, pizza. Part of the crust, and it's one of those stuffed crusts. Fortunately, one thing we always have plenty of in the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, also known as my barn, is seagulls. We acquired the seagull DNA, then the four of us, with Tobias watching from the high rafters, morphed into the new bodies. I have been a bird before, an osprey to be exact, one of the types of hawk, but gulls are different in some ways. For one thing, they're scavengers, not predators. So as we took wing and flew in a rush of white from the open hayloft, I noticed different things, felt different things. My seagull mind was not searching for mice or scurrying animals. It was much more open-minded. My seagull intelligence looked for anything that could even possibly be food. Fortunately, the gull brains were close enough to the other bird brains we'd experienced that it was fairly easy to control them. We didn't waste a lot of time getting started. Although, once we did get started, everyone was constantly pointing out the food they saw. Hey, look! French fries on the ground! Whoa! That's half a Three Musketeers bar by that car. Oh, look at that dumpster behind the McDonald's! Sometimes you just have to accept the animal's basic mindset and go with it. That's the beach, Jake said, as we flapped and soared and flapped some more. It's easier being an osprey in some ways, much less flapping. Once we were out over open water, we could at least stop scanning for food, mostly. Hey, is that a bag of potato chips floating down there? We flew low, just a few dozen feet above the water, not like hawks who can ride the thermals up to the bellies of the clouds. But Tobias wasn't much higher than we were now. There are no thermals over the water, and he was having to flap a lot to stay aloft. We flew on, skimming the choppy surface of the water. Hey, look, Rachel said. Over to the left. Sleek gray shapes sliced through the water, up, down, breaking the silvery barrier between sky and sea. It was a school of dolphins. You know, sometimes this is just so wonderful, Rachel said. I mean, we're flying. We're flying! And later, we'll be like them, at home in the water. Yeah, just us and the sharks, Marco said darkly. Still, it is cool, Rachel said. There's a ship up ahead, Jake announced. You just now noticed it? Tobias laughed. Wow. Seagull eyes aren't exactly great, are they? It's a container ship called the Newmar. It's from Monrovia. It's a container ship called the Newmar. It's from Monrovia. You want to know what color the captain's hair is? Show off, Jake grumbled. Hawkeyes are totally amazing. As long as it's sunny out. As long as it's sunny out, Tobias could read us a book from like 3 blocks away. It was hard flying to catch up to the ship. It was moving fairly fast, and by the time we were close, I was exhausted. Yes, the apparently made up country is Monrovia. I can't recall if that ever comes up again. I don't think it does. The ship was gigantic, painted a rusty blue with a deck longer than a football field. The superstructure was all crammed toward the back. That's where the crew would be, so we flew forward, hoping to find someplace private. The deck was stacked with containers, big steel boxes like trailers. Row after row of them lined the deck, and we could see hundreds more down in the hold. We settled into the narrow space between 2 rows of containers far forward. It was like having walls all around us. Corrugated metal walls that went high over our heads. Tobias, how much time? Jake asked. Tobias twisted his head around to see the tiny watch strapped to his talon. It's been about half an hour. It's been about an hour and a half. We decided to resume our human shapes. The space between the rows of containers was even narrower once we were fully human again. It's chilly out here, I said. The steel deck was cold beneath my bare feet, and even though the sun was high in the sky, we were in shadow. Man, I swear this is the worst thing about morphing, Marco said. Can someone please figure out how to morph shoes and maybe a sweater? Come on, Cassie, you're the morphing genius. I'm sick of these morphing outfits. But you look so cute in spandex, Rachel teased him. Plus, they aren't exactly fashionable. All I'm saying is uniforms. Something cool looking and warm. Warm would be nice. When winter comes, we are going to be some sad little Animorphs. I have a more important question, Rachel said. How do we know when we're there? You know, our destination? Jake made a who knows face. I figure the ship is going like, what, 20 miles per hour? I figure the ship is going like, what, 20 miles per hour? So figure an hour, and that puts us 20 miles out, right? Rachel pointed a finger at her forehead and said, Jake's a total mathematical genius. 1 hour at 20 miles per hour, right away he figures out that's 20 miles. Jake laughed. That's about all the math I can do. Actually, we're moving about 18 miles per hour, Tobias said. We all just stared at him. I fly along the roads sometimes and watch the car speedometers, so I have a pretty good idea of how fast I'm flying. When we were flying alongside the ship, I clocked it. Okay, 18 miles an hour, more or less, straight south, Marco considered. That would put us within a couple miles of where Cassie thinks we should go. I winced. Every time anyone said something about me deciding where to go or what to do, it made me nervous. I'd better head back, Tobias said regretfully. I don't want to try and fly 18 miles back without a rest. And if I stay on this ship, I'll end up in Singapore. Singapore? Rachel asked. Yeah, I read the captain's log as we were flying alongside. That's where this one's headed. So, Monrovia might be a port in Singapore. Now we know. Oh, you already looked it up. It is real. Okay. Sorry, I apologize to all the Monrovians out there for assuming that your home was made up. My apologies. Tobias flew off, leaving the little watch with us. It was extremely dull waiting for an hour with nothing to do but try and guess what was in the big containers all around us. On the other hand, we knew that what we had to do next would definitely not be boring. So basically, we were happy to just be bored for a while, huddling together to stay warm in the whipping ocean breeze. After a long time, Jake checked the watch. It's been about an hour. Cassie, what do you think? I don't know, I admitted. I guess I was hoping that when I was back in Dolphin Morph, I would be able to make sense. I would be able to make sense of more of the details the whale communicated to me. It was mostly images, and some of the images were sounds. Some of the images were about sounds and currents and water temperature and stuff you can't see from the surface. Jake thought for a moment. Oh, well, now is as good a time as any, I guess. Let's head for the side. We stood up, uncramping our cold, stiff legs and arms. We moved along the row of containers toward the left side of the ship, the port side, as they say. We reached the side. There was a solid steel railing that ran all the way around, about waist high. Jake checked to see if we would be in view of the bridge, and we headed forward a little more to a blind spot where no one should be able to see us. The four of us leaned over the railing and looked down at the water. It looked like it was a million miles below. Marco whistled. Man, that is some high dive. No big deal for a seagull or a dolphin, but a mighty long way for a human, I agreed. We can't morph up here. We'd never get our dolphin bodies over the side, Rachel pointed out. Nope, Jake agreed. We have to jump in with our human bodies. All except Marco. He can't swim. I thought he could morph up here, and then we could all shove him over the side. Rachel looked skeptical. Jake, when Marco is in dolphin morph, he'll weigh like 400 pounds. Jake looked worried. I kind of didn't think about this when I was planning. I had a sinking feeling. The plan was falling apart before it had even begun. I'll lean against the railing, Marco suggested. I'll start morphing, and then, before I lose my legs, you guys help shove me over. I'll finish morphing within a few seconds of hitting the water. Oh, pardon me. Struggling a little bit tonight. Thank you for your patience. Unless the water knocks you out and you just sink, I said flatly. Forget it. Let's just morph back to seagulls and fly back home. This is insane. Insane? Marco echoed. Hey, that's my word. Look, we came this far. I don't care, I yelled, surprised at my own passion. I'm not going to be responsible for anyone dying. This isn't going to work. I don't know where I am. I don't know where we're going. I don't know what to do. Marco laughed. Excellent pep talk, Cassie. Now I'm really looking forward to this. I was going to yell at him, something like, "Look, Marco, this is not a joke." But when I looked at him, I saw that his face was bulging way out, forming a long grinning beak. He had already started to morph. "I'm not gonna hurt," he started to say, but his mouth no longer worked. He was growing larger, straining his weak human legs with his weight. His arms were flattening into flippers. "Now," Jake said. He grabbed Marco's flipper arm. Rachel and I jumped forward and seized his legs, just as they began to shrivel. "Heave!" Jake yelled. Marco, half human, half dolphin, tumbled backward over the railing and fell into the sea. "Let's go," Jake said. "Yeah!" Rachel said with a wild grin. She jumped up on the railing, balanced for a moment like the gymnast she was, then launched herself into a neat swan dive. Jake and I exchanged a glance. "Rachel," he said, and rolled his eyes. "She's your cousin," I pointed out. "On the count of 3. 1, 2, ah!" I screamed as I climbed over the railing and launched myself as far from the steel wall of the ship as I could. Chapter 16. Ah! I fell for what seemed like a very long time. Buzz! I hit the water feet first and plowed beneath the surface in a pillar of bubbles. The cold shocked me. The water was like ice. And just a few feet away was the intimidating steel wall of the tanker, sliding past at what felt like incredible speed. I kicked my feet and began to rise toward the surface. I've been a swimmer since I was little, but it frightened me being this far out. It frightened me being this far out in water this deep. This wasn't a swimming pool or a pond. This was the ocean, 20 miles from land. I broke the surface and gasped a lungful of air and a mouthful of salt water. It may be time to drug the noisy one. What, what had looked like a little bit of choppiness from up in the ship felt like towering waves down here. I couldn't see any of the others. All I could see was the side of the ship. "Come on, Cassie," I told myself. "Morph. Do it. This is no place for a person." A human person. There is just about nothing as helpless as a human being in the ocean. Without my ability to morph, I would not have lasted an hour. I felt the change begin as I focused on morphing. At first, I thought it would kill me. I soon had most of the weight of a dolphin, with nothing but my human feet paddling to keep my head above water. My arms had already become flippers. A wave washed over me, leaving me sputtering from my mouth and my blowhole at the same time. I realized I could no longer keep my head above water, so I took a deep lungful and let myself sink. As my eyes went from human to dolphin, my underwater vision improved. I could see other figures, kicking and writhing in the water around me. Jake, half changed, Rachel, almost complete, Marco, with a dolphin grin, looking amused. Then, with a kick of my newly completed tail, I knew I was safe. I had made the change. I was a dolphin in a dolphin's world. The human clumsiness, the human cold. The human clumsiness, the human cold, the human fear of an alien environment all evaporated. I was warm and in control and right where I should be. Oh, I'm sorry. We gave him his painkillers and then he just like went at that water bottle with such a renewed vigor. Yeah. Yes, that's good. He's got his strength back somewhat. Thank you for attending to the noise monster. Everyone okay? One by one, they answered. We had made it. Too bad this was just the easy part of the mission. Well, that was fun, Margot said sardonically. Let's never, ever do it again. Cassie? Jake prodded me. I tried to relax, to let my human mind recede just a little. I needed to listen to the dolphin instincts. I needed to understand the whale's instructions, something no human could ever do. Not far, I said. We're just a few, oh, forget it, there's no word for it. Just believe me, we're close. After you, Cassie, Jake said. It felt strange, taking the lead, but only I knew the way. We traveled near the surface for a while. This made it confusing for me because whales go much deeper. And the world the whale saw and knew was a deeper world than I, as a dolphin, experienced. And yet, I knew I was going in the right direction. My echolocating clicks painted murky, half understood pictures in my mind of underwater hills and valleys and rifts. I felt currents tugging at me. I sensed changes in water temperature. In the end, I just knew. Okay, everyone, get a good lungful, I said. We surfaced, blew out the stale air, and filled our lungs with the good, clean ocean air. Hey, what's that? It was Rachel. What? I asked her. Over there. It's a helicopter. We all watched as a helicopter flew low and very slowly over the water. It was just a few hundred yards away. Pardon me. We all watched as a helicopter flew low and very slowly over the water. It was just a few hundred yards away, and with our dolphin vision, we couldn't see it as well as we might have with our human eyes. But as it flew closer, I could see that it was dragging a cable through the water. Some sort of sensor, Jake speculated. They're looking for something in the water, Marco agreed. It's them, I said. No one argued. We all knew it was true. The controllers were flying that helicopter. The Yerks were here. Chapter 17. Everyone, take in as much air as you can, I said again. We're going deep. We dove and swam almost straight down. Down, down, leaving the bright barrier behind, away from the sun, away from the light, away from the air that we needed just as much as humans did. I echolocated a school of fish ahead, just below us, but we weren't there to eat lunch. We swam through the fish, and still we headed down, down until we could see the ocean floor beneath us. We leveled off and skimmed across the ocean floor. We leveled off and skimmed across the ocean floor as if we were low-flying jets racing at treetop level over waving fields of seaweed, through darting schools of fish, over jutting extrusions of rock, encrusted by barnacles and home to 1,000 bizarre crabs and lobsters and urchins and worms and snails. Ahead was a ridge, a sort of long, low hill. We sailed over it. I'm starting to feel like maybe taking a breath would be a good thing, Rachel said. How much farther? We all saw it at the same time. Saw it, yes, but could hardly believe it. I've become used to seeing impossible things. Aliens, spaceships, my own friends turning into animals, but this was just plain mind-boggling. It was round as a plate, a very large plate. From one side to the other, the diameter must have been half a mile. It was covered by a transparent dome, clear glass, or whatever it is the Andalites use for glass. And within the dome, protected from the crushing force of the water, was what looked very much like a park. A park in a clear plastic dome at the bottom of the ocean. There was grass, more blue than it was green, but it still looked like grass. There were trees that looked like huge stems of broccoli, and other trees like orange and blue asparagus spears. At the center was a small lake, crystal clear blue water, and pardon me, let me do that again. At the center was a small lake, crystal clear blue water. From the water grew fantastic, transparent green crystals in shapes like its eccentric snowflakes. Whoa, Marco said. Man, Jake commented. Is this what you expected, Cassie? Rachel asked me. I had dreams. I saw flashes of something. But this is unbelievable. I think that may be a hatch down there, Marco said. You see that part that sticks out? Let's try it, Jake said. I can't hold my breath much longer. We arced down toward a part of the glass that seemed different from the rest. As we got closer, we could really begin to feel the size of the dome. It was like approaching one of those huge stadiums where they play football, but even bigger, if you can imagine that. It is a hatch, Rachel reported. She was a little bit ahead of the rest of us. It's some kind of a glass door. It's some kind of a glass door. On the other side, there's a little room, then another door that leads into the dome. Yeah. On the other side, there's a little room, and then another door that leads into the dome. There's a little red panel beside the outer door. Let's either try it or surface, Marco said urgently. That red panel. That's got to be the doorknob, Jake said. Here goes. Let's hope this works. He pressed his beak against the panel. Instantly, the outer door opened. We should try this one at a time, see if it's safe, Marco said. Not enough time, I said. My lungs were burning. I needed air. The four of us all swam in through the outer door. There was a second red panel. I punched it with my beak, and the door closed. The four of us all swam in through the outer door. There was a second red panel. I punched it with my beak, and the door closed, sealing us into a small glass room. We could see out and up into the ocean all around us. But the side leading into the dome was opaque. I knew we'd end up in an aquarium sooner or later, Marco said. The water began to drain from the room, slowly, a little at a time. The water began to drain from the room, slowly, a little at a time. This opened an area of air at the top of the enclosure. I raised my blowhole and sucked in blessed oxygen. Okay, let's morph, Jake said. I had already started. By the time the enclosure was half drained, I could stand on my own 2 human feet. We made it, Marco said after his human mouth reformed. I don't know where we made it, but we made it. The enclosure was empty now. The four of us stood there, barefoot, dressed only in our soggy morphing outfits. There was one last red panel beside the door, leading into the dome. Ready? Jake asked. As ready as I'll ever be, Marcus said. Jake pressed it with his hand. The door slid open. I felt a wave of warm, incredibly fragrant air rush in. I caught a glimpse of, then a brilliant flash of light, and suddenly I was unconscious. Okay. And I think because I have been struggling a fair bit tonight, and I think we have like the right amount left, not to push through and try to finish the fourth book in 3 sessions, but to leave that last bit for a fourth session. And I think that should probably be about right. So let me just check what we've got left. Oh, yeah, I think that's good. So I think I will leave it here for this Wednesday and hopefully see you again next Wednesday for the thrilling conclusion to Animorphs number 4, The Message. Thank you so much, and good night for now.